Welcome back, friends. In this video tutorial series, we are building this application, IoT, which you see right here. In the very first episode, we had done a complete walkthrough of this application, and in subsequent episodes, we've been building it. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to add dashboards to the application. The data visualization is one of the key aspects or key features of ZOAPIIO applications, and I think our video series would not be complete without a discussion of this. So continuing with our IoT application, I'm back to where we had started, which is the JSON file which describes the structure of the application. You've seen this designer before. We are back to this one. The dashboards are added from the same interface. You come to the tab Customization. Within that, you will see several of these tabs. And I will leave these as advanced subjects and just focus on widgets right now, because that's what we want to need to build our dashboards. So when we define the widgets, we just add the widgets and leave them in the application. When we deploy, they become available to the application. And the end users can design their own dashboards by combining these widgets, as we had seen in the first episode. So these are all the widgets. So let's take a look at this widget. It's a sensor data widget. It's of the type line chart. We have most types of charts covered here. You give it a name, basic properties, and then how this widget would function is controlled through these two tabs, selection and output. So selection, it allows you to control input filters for the widget. The filters can be fixed or dynamic. If a filter is fixed, then you have to provide it a value, or the user has to provide it a value at the time of adding the widget to the dashboard. And if it is dynamic, its value can be selected at the time of viewing the widget. So we have some special types here, like for example, hash period and hash period granular, which is kind of a shortcut to say last day, last hour, etc. And you will find the description of all this in the documentation. So this selection will control how the input to the widget is configured. Now let's come to the output. So the output of the widget requires you to have the knowledge of SQL. This is again some level of programming expertise. If you don't know SQL, you can take somebody's help, but it's really only a select query, and you can perhaps read it up and learn yourself as well. So when you write the SQL, there are some shortcuts, like when you say @sensor data, it refers to the entity sensor data. The table that gets generated actually has a prefix attached to it. So you just put @ and system will know what table we are talking about. There's some names appearing with hash. These refer to the selection, input selection that you have used. So when I say some select condition where sensor ID hash SID, it would replace this with the appropriate selection that has been provided to the widget. Okay. So if it's a value, it will say equals value. If it is list, it will say in and give the list. So you don't, in your SQL, you don't put in or equals or less than, greater than. System figures that out as well. So that's it. You just prepare your SQL in a semi-coded way, and that's about all the programming you need to know. Then let's come to the result. In the result, we will specify what fields from the query have to be picked up and put onto the output. So here we have H. So when we say select something and we given it a alias H, now we can say then we pick up that H and give it a name which is date and what type it is. So we specify all the output fields from the query and you mention them here. So the type of these fields has got a special significance. And for example, if you are using a line chart, there has to be exactly one string type field and multiple number type fields. So it's going to draw as many lines as you have the numeric elements. So you have to read the documentation and figure out for each type of the chart what types of output fields you need to provide. So perhaps it's easier to just work backwards. You start with the chart, see what all you require, then go back, build your SQL, see what inputs are required, put them there, assemble your entire configuration here, and you're done. Same way you go about doing this for all the dashboards, for all the widgets, and that's it. You say OK and you deploy your project again. So as you can see, adding widgets to your application is a really straightforward activity, except it requires you to have some knowledge of SQL and some knowledge of you need to read the documentation on what output elements you need to provide for each graph. The type of graphs we're supporting is quite comprehensive. In fact, we even have a pivot table, and which is a very flexible type of chart. You can create pivots, you can create pie charts, line, columns, and even image type, which is we use for the alarms, etc. So friends, I hope this last 3 episodes have given you a good idea on how to build a complete application using ZOAPIIO Web IDE and using the wizard to generate your application structure. I'll be continuing this series and in the next episode I will pick up a new topic which will be outside of the IoT application. I think the discussion on the IoT application is complete and we'll stop here. In further episodes, I hope to cover things like how to use debugging and how to use the database assistant, which is one of the tools available with the designer. So friends, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.